Anybody here see the B.B. King funeral? You know, B.B. King died last month. I don't have cable anymore, so the only thing I get is Apple TV. So you get things like the B.B. King funeral. Well, you know, B.B. King, pretty famous and very well known in Hollywood. And when he gave his last testament and what he wanted to do for his funeral, he wanted to be back in Mississippi where he started the blues. And he wanted it to be done at the Baptist church that he grew up in Mississippi. Hollywood wasn't real happy about that. They wanted to have but he chose Mississippi where he started. He never forgot his roots. Interestingly enough, he asked that his pastor do his eulogy. My goodness, the guy had been his pastor for 64 years. Unfortunately, the pastor died a month before B.B. King died. So the associate pastor of this church was asked to do B.B. King's eulogy. And here he is in this small Baptist church. There may have been 200 or 300 people there. And there was a lot of the Hollywood folks there. But I will never forget what he did. He got up and he said, I am the pastor of such and such church. And I am here today, and I'm an unapologetic follower of Jesus Christ, and through Him I am saved. Folks, I'm an unapologetic follower of Jesus Christ, and through Him I am saved. It was interesting, he did not cater to the world. He catered to what he knew. Now, he also went on to make a statement. I always try to say this. He said, if you're listening to me today, okay, first, one of the things I ask is, I always ask God, I pray, your will be done. Let the words that come out be your words. And he had an interesting way he did it. He said, and I'm going to tell you this very same thing, if you hear anything that makes any sense coming out of my mouth today, look up and say, thank you, Lord. If I start rambling or get out of control, look up and say, help him, Lord. You know, this is Father's Day. And I want to just share my father's story. And you know, my father was a hardworking man, worked 3 jobs. He was a talented musician. Had an opportunity to go to Nashville and record. But he understood the importance of family and turned it down. And it was just, it was incredible. It was incredible to watch what he did. And my father didn't say a whole lot to us as children. And he was working most of the time. He knew how to provide shelter. But fathers, I will tell you this, sometimes it is that one thing you say to your child that lives with them forever. I'll never forget, I was 5 of us sitting around the dinner table eating, and when you had 5 children, you ate as fast as you could because you wanted to have a chance for seconds. My father comes in from work. Usually he says nothing. And I don't think I was about 13 at the time. I was playing junior football. I was feeling pretty good. And he came up to me, put his arms on the back of my shoulder. I'm 13 years old, and I'm like in shock. He had never done this before. And he said a simple thing, you are really becoming a man. He didn't ever do it again. He always showed us love, but that one moment defined my relationship with my father. Being a father is the most important job we will ever have. The most important job we will ever have. Many, myself included, when you're 20 or so and you're coming along in a career, you got to get that career. I actually had a mentor in business who told me that this business came first. Family and God came second and third. The most important job I have ever had is that of a father. And when I see young people having children, whether it be my own family or whatever, I remind that young man, you are now taking on the most important job that you'll ever have. You know, one thing about these new millenniums, y'all know who the millenniums are? The 1980s to the people born 1980 to the mid-1990s. You know, they've taken us over, baby boomers. They're now the #1 population. They're getting somewhat of a bum rap, and I've been watching some of them. If you pay attention to that age group, and I hope we may have some here, they are very, very dedicated to family. I watch my own son-in-law who works a lot. But it is amazing for me to watch him with my grandchildren. He puts family first. You know, we just learned about James and John on the mountaintop. Has anybody here ever had a mountaintop experience where you may have taken the time to listen to God that they want to share? Now, before you do that, I did my research. A 10-minute sermon is 1,200 words. I've used up 225 already, so don't take all of my words. But has anybody ever had a mountaintop experience? Choir, anybody up there ever had a mountaintop? Ray, share it with us.
Well, I did once. I sang a song which words were different, but how great thou art was the melody. And it told about my son and myself going up to Old Rack. And when you look down and see those eagles or buzzards or whatever they were flying, and you can see their backs, that was an amazing experience. And I just thought of the Lord Jesus Christ.
You heard God. You heard God at that moment.
I said, this is surely from Him.
And there's plenty of it out there. You know, our song today is, our theme today is, you can have all this world, give me Jesus. Do not be confused by that title. That means we want Jesus in the world. How many people here can remember anything from when they were 3 years old? You can. It's kind of difficult to remember, but some, oh no, Ray remembers, and that's a miracle, Ray. 3. When I was 3 years old, the memory that I have, my parents grew up on a North Carolina tobacco farm. Anybody ever here worked on a tobacco farm? Yeah, there's a reason there are so many North Carolinians that live on the peninsula. This is the promised land. They didn't want to work on those, and I have nothing but fond memories. But at 3 years old, I had a dog. The dog's name was Blackie. This is the only moment I have, and I followed that dog everywhere. One summer day, the dog started going back in the back fields, and I followed the dog. I'm 3 years old, and I kept following the dog, and I kept following the dog, and I kept following the dog. And the next thing I know, I'm in the middle of a swamp in Greene County, North Carolina, lost. Now, if you hear my mother can you imagine being the mother of a 3-year-old and you can't find them? And of course, I sometimes stretch the story because I'm a fisherman. It's gone from I was missing 3 days down to 3 hours, maybe a half a day. But you can imagine being missing. What happened to me as I sat on a log in the middle of the swamp, and I'll never forget this. This is the effect that fathers and grandfathers have had on me. My saving grace lost almost. The county had gotten the sheriff's department. People were looking for me everywhere. And what do I see after almost sunset? But I see my grandfather coming through this thicket. The sun is shining behind him, and he's got tears in his eyes, and he's pulling out a piece of spearmint chewing gum to keep me from crying, and he saves me. Now, the reason I tell you this story, a year ago, I went to a retreat outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in the southern Appalachian Mountains, which are only about 3,000 feet. I went with Ike Newingham, and I went with Jeff Cannon, and this was a group of men, and it's the start of a mentoring program that I hope that we start here at St. Mark's. One of the things that we were asked to do was to listen to see if you could hear God. So they sent us all out of the facility, and a lot of the guys went out, and there was an athletic field and this sort of thing. But when I got there that day and I saw that mountain, I said, I'm going to climb that mountain. Now, let me tell you, the mountain was only, I'll bring my fishing story down. The mountain was only about 1,000 feet. We were at 2,000, only had about 1,000 feet to go, but I decided I was going to do that. So I start my trek up the mountain. And when I got to the top, there was a fallen log there that reminded me of the log when I was 3 years old. And look, you could say, oh, God, Marty's gone nuts. And if this was 1970, you'd say he's drinking something. But I see that log, and I just start weeping. I sit down on that log, and I hear this voice. God, I don't think I'm nuts. I saved you for a reason. I saved you for a reason. That was my mountaintop moment. I had picked up a stick and started going down the mountain with the stick, and I got off of there was actually a trail, and I got back on the trail, and the stick breaks. And I hear another voice. Marty's not going crazy, I promise you. He says, follow my path, and you won't need that stick. There's my mountaintop moment. Now, I don't know what it means, and I have not done a good job probably of doing all of that, but take the time and listen. Like Ray did, listen, and you will hear God. A mountaintime moment. You know, in our small group upstairs that we have here in the church, we have been studying Jesus, the human being. Jesus as he's here on earth. And what we have learned is that Jesus was an underdog. You ever heard it called an underdog? Think about it, he was. Jesus was a revolutionary. Think about the times. Jesus was a revolutionary. Jesus was a hero. Jesus was a headliner. Boy, if he was around today, he'd really be making headlines. Hopefully, he'd be making headlines. And Jesus was a dreamer. I feel this is the message. If we want to reach people, we need to let them know this is the Jesus we follow. This is the Jesus that has led us in this church. As the body of the church, we should be revolutionary. We should be heroes. We should be headliners. We should be dreamers. You know, I know that it is hard for us sometimes to accept change. I love what George Curtis says. George Curtis says, I'm all for change as long as it doesn't affect me. And sometimes that is very true for all of us. Folks, principles and beliefs should never change or never be compromised. Principles and beliefs never change. Methods can. Methods, that's an interesting term. John Wesley said that in order to pursue Christ, you had to have a method to do it. That's what we believe as Methodists. But I feel today, if John Wesley was here today, he would probably say to us, good gracious, folks, I didn't tell you I had to keep doing it like we were doing it in the 19th century. It is okay to change the method in which we reach people. Principles never change. Methods can. Change is good. Jesus was all about change. Jesus invented change, for heaven's sake. we still do not have to compromise our traditions. Dave Manier shared with me a video of a United Methodist Church in Illinois. And the pastor of that church, and it was a dying church, she decided that what she was going to need to do to focus her ministry was on men. She focused her ministry on men. They did things like change some of the colors of the church. They changed some of the banners that were in the church. And Leslie, I don't know if you're going to like this, they went out in the United Methodist hymnal and took all the girly hymns out. That's going a bit far. And this lady was smart. She made her emphasis on men. It has been proven. As a matter of fact, you know that 2/3 of the membership of United Methodist Church, you know what they are? Women. 2/3. Thank you, women, for carrying us. You know, here at this church, we have a great men's program. We have great mentors here. And it has been, with the fact that the women, you have carried us, it has been proven when the man leads his family to Christ, when the man attends church, when the man is a truly committed follower of Christ, the family comes. The children come. Consequently, this church, who put all of their focus, they went from a church that half the pews were filled on Sunday to a church that had 30% growth. The average age of the church went down, listen to this, to 42 years old. The average age of the church went down to 42 years old. And you know what? All those 70 and 80 years old, they felt 42. They felt 42. So, it is important for us to realize the importance of men in this church. You know, statistics are showing today that only 20% of Christians, probably 80% of the population will say they're a Christian, but only 20% actually practice and are followers of Jesus. If there's ever been a time when we need to get outside of these walls and practice what we believe, it is now. We had a terrible tragedy in a church this week. A fellow Methodist church at one time, the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Terrible tragedy. And we saw a young man do something that none of us can comprehend. And it makes you wonder if there had been a male role model in that family showing the teachings of Jesus about love, showing Jesus as a hero and as a true person to follow, would the consequences have been different? The good thing about, and I don't use that, the thing that's coming out of this tragedy is what an example that church, those Christians are showing to all of us in the world and how to react. They are reacting like Jesus. One of the toughest commands Jesus gives us is love your enemies. We hate that one, don't we, Bill? Bill and I were talking about it. It's a tough one. How do you love your enemies? But we have been given an example. We have been given, Martin Luther King has to be very happy on the way this church has reacted to this tragedy. Martin Luther King was certainly a dreamer, and he dreamed the same dreams that Jesus dreamed of doing these things peacefully. So he's certainly got to be happy with this particular church. Today, as a United Methodist men, I have kind of unofficially been here to make a proclamation to the church. As men of this church, we are great builders. We are great repairmen. Our proclamation today, and that is all good stuff, and we're going to continue to do that. Our proclamation to you, church, today, to you, ladies, to you, children, is that we are going to become builders of men as well. The leadership of the United Methodist Church, slowly, but we're getting there, we're putting more focus on doing the things that we've done successfully, but also adding a number of things that will become more successful. I was very proud of the United Methodists as we were involved in the trunk or treat. I was very involved with the United Methodists when we became involved with the Easter egg hunt. These are the types of things that you're going to see us as United Methodists do. Give me Jesus. If you're waking up in the morning and you're having a tough day, this particular song that Brian and Andrew are going to do here in a minute is one of my favorite songs. If I'm having a tough day, I play it. Give me Jesus. You can have all of this world. Give me Jesus. And let's give Jesus to this world. Our mission statement. How many people know what the mission statement of St. Mark's United Methodist is? Someone shout it out. I should have asked you to put it on the screen. Make disciples and show our love and care. Write it down somewhere. Our mission statement at St. Mark's United Methodist is to make disciples and show our care and love. We do a good job on the second part of that. But let's make it our mission to make disciples, to bring people to Christ. Our proclamation today as men is that we are going to try to do that. Now, as Brian and Andrew, if you guys want to come on up, take the time to listen to this very simple song. And first of all, Brian, I know Brian's probably having a little throat issue there. It sounds like this, but thank you for taking the time to do this. Listen to the words of this very simple song. Use it to guide you.